closing tag. You can also do that, but who wants to do that? It's more typing. Why would you do that? You can do that if you want. And that basically does the same thing. So there's one important distinction between your own components and HTML attributes or HTML elements tags, and that is that if you make your own component, it needs to be capitalized for the transpiler to work. So if you didn't have it capitalized, so let's say we had a lowercase say hi, then Babel is going to transpile that to look like this as a string. So it needs to be capitalized. There are like 6 quirks about React that you learn once and then you never need to worry about. So, okay, that's not entirely accurate, but I like to think that. Yeah, any questions about that before I set you free on your next mission? Okay, great. So your next mission is to basically do the same thing. So ultimately, we're still going to render hello world, except this time I want you to create a say hello component that does that, and then render use that say hello component in your React on render. Cool. So. Do you need help getting set up?
Yeah, I haven't started.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you have Slack open?
Yeah.
So go to open up a new channel and search for React. That one. And that is the setup steps. So it's like all those commands, you just run those commands. Okay, anybody get it? Okay. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or need help. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Okay, that's my solution. Anybody else get it? Yeah, awesome. Fun fact, some people like to do things this way. I'm not one of those people, but if you are, then you might like this. We can create a variable called say hello and assign that to an arrow function. And with the implicit return, it's pretty terse. And that is functionally equivalent. So if that's your jam, jam away. That is not my jam. I like function declarations because they hoist, and it's great. Okay, so how many people have got it? Okay, getting close to a majority, so I'll wait for just a sec. If you are having difficulty or anything, ask your neighbor because we're all friends here. By the way, remind me at like a little bit after 3, like maybe 3:15, maybe even 3:30. I'm gonna give you all like a 10-minute break because 2.5 hours is a long time. So. Okay, so this is our last one that is like simple hello world in this nice little environment, single file thing. We are now going to go and use something called Storybook. So this is pretty cool. I just discovered, or like just tried it for the first time today, actually. No, last night. I'm a little bit more prepared than that. All the exercises were prepared before, Yeah, Storybook is actually super cool. So the way that you start up Storybook is you need to open up your terminal. Actually, I'm just going to do this, not this fancy handy dandy thing. And inside of wherever you cloned this this workshop, you're going to run a script that I totally forgot the name of. Yeah, Storybook. So you'll run npm run Storybook, and this will start up a server on localhost 9009. npm run Storybook, and you'll get this fancy thing. So it is, whoops, npm run Storybook. How many people have the fancy thing? All right, getting there. You have an error. Okay, I'm gonna help with the error real quick. For those of you who catch on really quick and you don't want to get bored, if you want to, you can run npm start, and that will start up a different server for you on port 3000, and that will show you the create React app default screen. And we are actually rendering one of the components from the workshop here. So it's actually, we're going to build this a little bit later. It's pretty fun. It's rendering every single time you see that change. What? Yeah, so we're going to build that. Yeah, so if you're like getting way ahead and stuff, you could start like building stuff into the app. That all lives inside of app.js, starting at app.js. So if you want to play around with that side. But most of our time is going to be spent in the Storybook. Storybook is super cool. We have this exercises thing that has all of our exercises that are incomplete. And then there's the finished exercises where you can see what the end result would be for each of these. So here, there's that stopwatch thing. We actually are never going to use that action logger, so if you want to get rid of that, it is, I don't know, what is that? Action logger. Oh, it looks like you can't get rid of it, so you can move it over to the side if you want. Yeah, and ultimately we're going to be doing some data fetching too, which is fun and taking a second, but there we go. Boom. So let me, I feel like this should be paused. Great. So raise your hand if you have React Storybook open and ready to go. Let's rock and roll then. So let me put that. Our files of interest are in the source directory /exercises. And inside of here, we'll start with 01 props. So here, I've already done a couple of things for you. I'll just, to kind of back up again on the React Storybook stuff. There's some magic things happening to get all of these files in that Storybook. I'm not going to show you that because it's not entirely relevant. You already know how to render, so you could actually build that whole thing right now. Fun stuff. Okay, maybe it would take a little bit of work, but all that we really care about now is actually creating components. We're not going to be rendering them ourselves anymore. And lots of these, I'll give you kind of some starting code and some comments and stuff. And you will have two things that you're going to be exporting, and they should all already be done for you. You'll be exporting default, say hello. Actually, I should stop really quick. How many people are familiar with this syntax, export default and export const and stuff? You're familiar? Okay, so tomorrow at the conference, I'm giving a talk called More Than You Want to Know About ES6 Modules, and you'll learn about what these things mean in greater detail than you probably want to. So if you are curious about what on earth this is, then yeah, come to my talk tomorrow. So just suffice it to say, this is how the Storybook knows what to show for us. Specifically, the example here, this is a function. It's an arrow function with an implicit return because we're using parentheses there. So it's returning this JSX. And that is how the Storybook knows what to render. And so here I'm on 01 props. It says incomplete. If I say, like, add a bunch of S's there, incompletes, and save, I don't actually even have to refresh. This is hot module replacement from Webpack. It's magic and amazing. And so you don't have to refresh. And if you have a bigger resolution on your laptop than I have on mine, I hope you do, then you could actually put your editor and your browser side by side and like see it update super fast. Super cool. Okay. Any questions about React Storybook and what, or actually, sorry. So for most of these exercises, you're going to have a component that you're going to be making changes to and stuff, and then you're going to need to use that component in the example function. And so, like, that's pretty much your task for every single one of these. Okay, now any questions before we actually start doing stuff? Okay, cool. Everybody's really happy to be here. All right. So for our first task, or for this bit, so far we've just been like rendering static stuff. We want to make some things a little bit more dynamic in nature, and so just like how HTML has attributes that you can use to modify and manipulate the element itself, in JSX, in React, these things have props. And in these function components, those props are passed as the first argument to the function, and the props represent, or is an object that represents the props that it's receiving. And so what our job is, in this case, is to use these props to render out hello, first name, and last name. So we're going to get the first name property off of props and the last name property, and we'll render that out inside of this div. And then in your example, you need to use the say hello component, passing along a first name and a last name so that it renders properly, and it'll say hello, first name, last name, whatever you do. I said Jill Mayfield, but yours can be whatever. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions? Sweet. Anybody get it? All right, we got 1, 2, 3. Anybody need help? Anybody having fun? Yeah, got one. Success. Anybody think the Storybook thing is pretty cool? Yeah, I think it's pretty handy. And this create React app thing is also pretty sweet.
This great app, what does it give? Like, what is your list of features?
Yeah, so it gives you a Webpack and all this stuff is behind the scenes. You have no idea what's going on, but gives you Webpack and ESLint, transpilation, loading CSS, and SVG, and I feel like there are a couple I think even hot module replacement works too. I don't think server-side rendering works. But yeah, like, and testing. You just start adding test files and it's so cool. Yeah, I haven't actually.
Quick link to it, but it's like it's hidden. Like it has some like one dependency React script, and then everything else is inside. So like you have to go and dive into.
Yeah, if you have trouble with it, then you have to kind of dive into it a little bit. But like, if you're just building up a quick prototype app, like holy mackerel. And the other cool thing is if you step outside of its, what it provides for you, you can just eject, run npm run eject. It'll update, it'll put all the Webpack config and ESLint config, everything right back in your own project, and it's like it was never there. You just magic have all this stuff. Pretty sweet. All right. We're going to move on. So my solution here was I just return those two things using props with two interpolated things inside of my JSX. You could also interpolate a string. Here's a template literal version, or like just regular old concatenate two strings together version. And then to use it, you pass those as attributes. So the attributes may look kind of funny because in HTML, in actual HTML, it's case insensitive, and so having like cases in here might look kind of funny. But the way that this is transpiled, this actually gets property value in an object, and so that is case sensitive. I actually really like that because I don't like typing the dashes all the time. Great. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. This is just a fun tip. So for pretty much all of my function components, I normally will do argument destructuring. And so instead of accepting a variable called props, I'll just take out the props that I care about. So first name and last name, and then I'll just use those here. So I save myself on some typing. Although honestly, I don't think it does actually save myself on typing. But what I actually really like about it is that I can look at the top here and know exactly what props I care about without having to look at the render, which is cool. Sometimes this isn't possible, but most of the time it is, and it's great. Great, so let's look at prop types. So this is actually, how many people here have used Angular before? Angular 1? Anybody using it right now? Angular 1 apps? No? Huh, that's surprising to me. What are you all using right now? Backbone? Or, oh, you're using React already? You're like, oh, this stuff is boring to you? Sorry. I tried to set expectations. It's very beginner. Yeah, so one of the things I really, really, really wanted in Angular is prop types. And basically what they are is a way to validate that people using your directive in Angular or your component, if they use it incorrectly, they get a warning in the console. This is one of my favorite features of React. It's super, super cool. So let's say that, well, this is kind of a sort of a bad example. So I'm going to change the example here really quick. So we're going to say props dot first plus props dot last, or no. Trying to think of a better example. Here, we'll do divided by. So if I wanted to, I could say say hello, first name true, and then I'm like doing stuff with last here. That's just first name, last name. Okay. So if I did this, then stuff's gonna blow up and hello Nan. Like, what is that even? It's like, I don't even know. So to protect against this, we can define prop types on our say hello. We do that by saying the function name, prop types, and then we provide an object here. I'm not going to type the rest of it out because that would be like kind of sad and cheating. So I'm going to pretend that we have a different component like avatar and prop types. And let's say avatar takes a photo URL. And the prop type for that would be a string. I would expect it to be a string. If it's not a string, that's a problem. I could even create my own prop type that like validates that it is actually a URL, but that might be a little extensive. But the way there's a really declarative way to define these prop types, and that comes from react.proptypes. And this prop types object has a bunch of different types on it, and one of those types is string. And also, the avatar isn't very useful without the photo, and so I'm going to say it is required. So now if somebody uses the avatar widget without providing a photo URL, that is a string, then they're going to get an error in the console in addition to like totally messed up widget and stuff, but at least they'll get an error in the console to figure out what's going on. So for our case, first name and last name are both going to be a string, and they're both going to be required. So your task is to add prop types to the say hello component, make first name and last name prop types that are string, and then before you update the example, I want you to go to the prop types thing and look in the console to see the warning that you get, and then update the example to use the proper stuff. Any questions? Okay, sweet. So your warning should look something like this. And then you can go fix it. There's my solution if you want a reference. Okay, anybody got it? Not quite? Okay. Give you a minute or two. Any questions? Okay. So I'll just walk through my solution here. You have the prop types object. You specify first name and last name. I actually added this import specifier up here on my import statement just because I like doing it that way. And so I could pull prop types right out instead of having to react.prop types. I could just say prop types. And like if you really want to be all crazy about stuff and whatever, then you can say prop type says P, and then you just use P everywhere. Like I have seen code like that. I'm not sure why people do that, but they like to. So there's that. Sorry. So yeah, then I had first name, last name is string, that is required. And then you refresh and it's like, oh, this is all messed up. Then you fix it and everything is happy and you don't see any errors in the console.
Can you show the error message that you see?
Yeah. So if I change this back and remove that, and because you're actually getting like hot module replacement going on all over the place, you might actually have the error up in your console a little ways. And React is actually only going to warn you about invalid props once. And so like if you don't see it, just try refreshing and it should pop up again. So here what you'll see is failed prop type, invalid prop first name of type boolean, so if I just say hello, and required prop last name was not specified. So there's that. Da-na-na-na. All right. We're doing good stuff, having a good time. Moving right along to styling. So, how many people in here totally love CSS? Like, you just live your life for CSS. Okay, I'm not one of those people, but I'm glad that you people exist because you can make CSS frameworks for me, so I don't have to do it. So here there are actually a couple different ways to style React components. So the plain old normal CSS like global style sheets, that totally works, and you just use class name and everything is handy dandy. With Webpack, we're actually using Webpack here so we can import CSS files that'll get added into the DOM at runtime, and so you can like organize your files a little bit nicer. That's what we're doing here. We have this styling.css. We're going to import it here in a second. But you can also do inline styles. So like you can do that with regular HTML too. You just say style equals, then border is 0 and whatever. But in React, if you're doing inline styles, those need to be the value of the style prop is an object, and that object maps to CSS. Except the property names of that object are camel case rather than kebab case. So let me give an example. I'm just going to do here, I'm going to use box. This is going to be a little bit different a little bit later, but I'm just going to show div. So if I have a div inside of here that's going to say hi there, and I want to organize things a little bit, I can add a class with class name, and I'm just going to say hey thing. And let's go into our styling.css, and I'm going to add a thing here, and we'll say color is blue. Good old CSS. And then because I'm using Webpack, and hopefully you're using something similar, I'm going to import my CSS. Totally doesn't work in Node, but Webpack will take that and be like, oh cool, CSS, let me do something cool with that. And so now I have it on the page. So I have this hey thing selector, styling things is blue. So if I save this and I pop open styling, then I should have hey thing, and I don't know how to use CSS. What did I do wrong? Hey thing, color is blue. Oh, yeah, haha. JavaScript in, or CSS and JS has messed me up. Okay, great, now it's blue. Okay. So that is one way to style things, just the same way that you've probably been doing it for years and years and years. And then if we use the style prop, then what that accepts is an object. So I didn't actually explain how to pass in like arbitrary JavaScript stuff inside of props. I should probably stop and explain that really quick. So I'm going to say const my style is awesome. No, just kidding. So if I want to interpolate JavaScript value into my JSX, then I'm just going to wrap it in the curly braces, right? Just like we talked about. The same thing goes for attribute values or prop values. If I want to interpolate something, I'm just going to stick it in these curly braces, and then I can pass in whatever, and like even immediately invoked function expressions, like whatever I want in here. This is anything that evaluates to a value. So here I can say my style right here and get that, or I can just inline it just like that. So whatever floats your boat, you can do it that way. So here I'll say background color is green. This is going to be like looks so good. So there we go. So now we're getting styles from both this hey thing selector and the element style. One other thing that bears mentioning is like the whole concept of CSS and JS. How many people are familiar with that whole idea of CSS and JS stuff? Okay, so there are a lot of challenges with CSS, and so this kind of this movement of what's known as CSS and JS has been going on, where basically instead of using CSS, you just use JavaScript to generate your CSS, whether it's inline styles or something else that generates actual style sheets. So my favorite flavor is Aphrodite. It's a really, really sweet library that allows you to create all of your styles using JavaScript objects, and then it will take those and inject them into the DOM at runtime. And what it gives back to you is a class that you apply to your element, and then because those things were injected, it all magically works. It's super cool because it supports pseudo states and it supports media queries, and all of this is happening in JavaScript. But because it's generating CSS, it's benefiting from the GPU and all of that other fun, great stuff. Also supports server rendering, which is fun. So yeah, if you're interested in looking at CSS and JS, I recommend you check out Aphrodite. It's great. Okay, so your task is to create. Oh wow, I didn't give you like any comments on this one, did I? Whoops, my bad. So let me just show you what the end result looks like. So we have this styling thing here. We have 3 boxes. So inside of your example, you're going to be using your box component that you're going to be building. You're going to use it 3 times, and you're going to be passing different props to it to change the size and the color. So I'm so sorry that I didn't give you like comments to kind of help guide your solution. So I'm going to show you the solution and then hide it from you really fast. So what you're going to do is you'll return a div that has a class name, and it's going to interpolate box. Oh, actually, sorry, let me show you the styles here. We have box class, so all of them are going to have the box class. And then you have 3 sizes, large, medium, and small. And so the dynamic part of this is the size. And so we're going to have the props.size, box dash dash props.size. And then also it can accept arbitrary styles. And then I didn't show you this, but every the React component gets this implicit prop called children, and children comes from whatever you put inside of the component children. So that just is something good to know. Yeah, let me think if that was it. I'm sorry I didn't give you any comments. That would have been a lot more helpful. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to take this away now. So it's a div that has a class name. Class name should have a box, and then a box dash dash, then the prop size, and then a style attribute that just takes prop style dot style, and then passes the props dot children to the children of the div. Whoops, and then you'll do it. Oh yeah, sorry. And then you'll do it 3 times inside of the example. You use box with box small and medium and large. and then pass a style object for each one of those, being whatever, like you can use background color, or you can use border radius, or whatever you want to do to style it to make it look nice. So, any questions? All right. Anybody finish? All right. Okay, anybody else finish? Okay, I'm gonna go through the walk or the solution. So yeah, so we created this class name or this div with the class name of box, and then box dash dash the props.size, and then we just forward on the style to this div, so people can specify whatever styles they want. And then we use the props.children, just forward that on to the children of the div. Sorry? Outside of the div? So, yeah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so then also there, I kind of skipped over, or I kind of gave you the prop types, but these are kind of useful to look at. So there's a prop type called one of, where you can provide an array of possible enums, the values, which is really handy for something like this. When there are only 3 availables, it's better than just saying a string. The style is an object, and then the children is a node. There are actually other prop types that deal with the elements and stuff like that. I've never really mastered those. It's kind of confusing. So you can look up the prop types a little bit later. Okay, so then for our example, we have just 3 boxes where we specify a different size for each of them. They have their own style and their own children, and what results is this fun, it looks like blocks you would give to your children. Okay, cool. Any questions about that styling stuff? Okay, great. So I'm going to stop right here and give you like 10 minutes to go get a drink. Actually, I'm going to go get a drink, and then we'll come back after that. I'm going to stop the video too.